So, I was inspired to make this video because a YouTuber that I've seen named Elisha Long, he came up with the concept of retardmaxxing, and these past few months it's been getting more traction on YouTube and on other platforms. And honestly, the more I thought about the concept, the more it really started to resonate with me and really started to make a lot of sense. Like literally, just do what you feel. Retard max. It's not that complicated. Now, for those who don't know, I have a main channel where I make video essays. And I was inspired to make this second channel because over the years, these type of talking head videos, they provided a lot of value for me and really helped me along my journey just for like, I don't know, fitness, general self-improvement, just like making decisions, bettering my life, like all that type of stuff. So these type of talking head videos over the years provided me with a lot of value. So I was like, fuck it, like why don't I just start doing my own? It's actually funny because I said this in what was supposed to be my first video, but I'm going to put out that video later because that video was supposed to be about my creative process and things that I learned making my own standalone album. But the album isn't out yet, it's still getting mixed, so it doesn't make sense to have it out if people can't go and listen to the album and compare what I learned to like what I actually applied. But anyways, I mean I digress though, but the point being is retard max. Just do what you feel. And what I was talking about before actually does go into my first point, which is why I stopped making video essays for a handful of months. Now, like I said before, I have a main channel where I make video essays. And those videos actually got some traction. Like those videos did moderately well. Like the most viewed video I made during that time is at like 90K right now. And then I have another video that's at like 76K. And I have another video that's at like 66K. And after that, it just goes down. There's one that's 30K. There's one that's like 7K. There's one that's like only like 2K or something like that. But the point being is that like I got moderate success on YouTube. And at some point, I just started to get disillusioned with it. And then I just took a break because I just didn't feel like doing it at all. Because like making video essays, making those types of videos takes a lot of work, especially when you're the only one doing it, when you're doing literally every part of the process. Because some bigger YouTubers have like script writers and like a whole team of people to help them out. But when you're the only person doing every step of the process, it could be time consuming, energy consuming. It could just be too much, honestly, especially if you're trying to put out videos consistently. You're spending days script writing, and it's crazy because like it ended up working out, but that's a whole another thing. But yeah, it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of energy, and at some point it just stopped being fun for me, and it was just incredibly consuming in like all aspects of my life. And like at some point I was just like, this isn't even fun anymore. I don't want to do this, so I stopped doing it. And then I made that album, which is a hip hop album. Like, for those who don't know, I do vocals in a hardcore band. Shout out to Liberate. But I love all types of music. If you've seen my main channel stuff, you would know that. But yeah, like I like all types of music. So that album, that standalone album, is like an abstract hip hop album. And then I do hardcore stuff too. Like I just like all types of music. But the point being is that I was putting off doing that album for a while, and it was just something that I really wanted to do. And then as making video essays just stopped being as fun, I made that album, and it was incredibly fulfilling. It was something that I wanted to do for mad long, and it just felt right. And it's crazy because like eventually I started getting ideas for video essays again. I started getting the itch to really want to just, you know, make YouTube videos again and not even be limited to video essays because, I'm still going to be doing it myself, but it does take a long time to put out these video essays if you're the only person doing every aspect of it. But yeah, I started getting the itch to make video essays again. I started getting ideas of what to do, and it's crazy because I even have like my next video, like I have the script pretty much fully done, and the process of doing that has been, it only took like 2 weeks to get the whole script done, which is actually crazy. But that's the point. The point is like that break was very, very useful because I ended up having like so much revitalized energy towards making videos again. And that helped me to really like see a bigger picture. It helped me to finally like pull the trigger on doing like a second channel, a talking head channel. It just helped me because then I started getting all these different ideas. I could do this, I could do that. I could not even be limited to YouTube posts on other platforms and stuff like that. And it's like I wouldn't have gotten all these ideas and all this revitalized energy towards making YouTube videos if I didn't do what I felt, if I didn't just stop doing it, because I could have kept doing it, but I really would have been drained, and it just really like probably wouldn't have been as fulfilling if I would have like made it to that next level. But like my heart wasn't in it, and I would have rather been doing something else. Like it wouldn't even have been worth it at that point. So yeah, like literally in that instance, to tie it all back, like I just retard maxed. I just did what I felt. It ended up being like incredibly useful in the long term because like I'm finally pulling the trigger on this because, and even then that goes to my next point. Like I wanted to make a second channel for a while, but I felt like, oh, like I'm not even that successful on my main channel yet. I should wait. I should do this, blah blah blah. And that's the like main crux of retard maxing, of doing what the fuck you feel. Is because like humans, like we just want to like really understand the world around us, and introspection, self-reflection, critical thinking, all these different things, they're crucial, they're incredibly necessary in order to grow, in order to understand yourself and the world around you. However, you know myself included, but people in general tend to take that to like push it to its limits, and they just do that too much. They do too much of it to the point that they get this thing called analysis paralysis. Now, for those who don't know, it's pretty much self-explanatory in the name. You analyze and think so much that you end up in the state of paralysis, and you end up not making choices. You just don't end up making decisions in the long run, and you end up being stuck, and you end up in this state of like you're just contemplating and you're just thinking for so long, thinking should I do it, outweighing the pros and the cons, just really in your head about it, when like literally just do it. Like I know it's cliche, but just do what you feel. Like if you choose to do it like right now, instead of waiting months and months and months and contemplating, you would have made more progress, and you would have made that decision anyways. Like you would have made more progress if you decided today, okay, I may not have everything in order, but I want to go do this thing, so I'm gonna go do this. Like it is I could use a lot of examples, but especially like in dating. Dating is definitely an example because like modern dating, as we all know, it's a cesspool. Like there's no other way I could put it. Like modern dating is a cesspool. There's situationships, there's people who don't want to commit, there's people who do want to commit, but they're scared, and it's like honestly like I fell for this trap before, to where it's like you could probably hear it in my voice, but I practice vocals today and my voice is type strained right now, but we push through. Where it's like if you're male, if you're female, if you're they them, like anybody could relate to this, to where it's like you found someone who you're really into, right? And you enjoy being around them and shit is fun, everything's going smoothly, but then you think to yourself, you're like, damn, like your mind just starts to race, and your head just goes in all these different directions where you're like damn, am I really ready for this? Can I commit to this? Am I in a place in my life to where I could be this consistent to someone? Like your head just starts to go in all these different directions. Like, can I really do this? Like, just all these thoughts just start to race, when it's like when you just do what you feel, you acknowledge like, yeah, like my I may be thinking these things, but then at the end of the day, you really are into this person, so you might as well just proceed and see where it goes. And then most times it ends up working out. And it's like the people, myself included, who will overthink and overanalyze. They'll be like, oh no, but like I'm really trying to work on this. I won't have the time to put into them, or like, oh, like I really don't have money like that, or like it could be like it could be a bunch of different things. So like you just don't have things in order to where you think you could really commit, and then you just end up fumbling like a really meaningful connection. And it's like that's one example of like if you were to just retard max and do what you feel, regardless of like where your head may go, you would just end up being in a really dope connection, just really being fulfilled in that way. And that's a trap that a lot of people fall for. But I have a bunch of points written down, so I'm gonna definitely be pulling from that. And also, it's hot as hell. It's hot as hell in New York, so I got my rag on me. It's like 95 degrees, heat wave. Summer's going crazy right now in New York. But yeah, one example. So yeah, like I said, I'm into all types of music. And actually, my brother, he's a drummer of our band. And my older brother, he also makes beats as well. And he makes these beats that are like, it's hip hop, but like it's blended with like vaporwave, and it's very lush, very dreamy, and it just like has this very grandiose, like there's a lot of elements in it, and it sounds incredible, his style of beat making. But the point being is that like he got these new speakers, right? And he got these new speakers because he has like he was building a new setup in his room, and then like once he got these speakers, he was hyped on it, and he was showing me it, and the sound was really good, and we were talking about it like, oh, like he could work on the new Libre stuff. And I was like, yeah, like you could also like work on like your beat stuff too. He was like, yeah, I could do it, but like also like the stuff I've been making, it's like not like what people expect of him. So it's not like these like vaporwave type hip hop beats. It's more like acid house, and like not, I wouldn't say jungle, but like it's like a more like house breakbeat style, borderline jungle, because he does have some jungle songs. But yeah, he was like, yeah, like I don't know like what I should do with the Archangel stuff, because the stuff I'm making is more like acid house. It has this completely different vibe. And I just told him, I was like, bro, like just release it under another pseudonym, or just keep releasing it under Archangel. And like the point of that is like literally like just like don't overthink it. Like he has this material that's really good, but like he's not sure how he should put it out. And it's like, Madlib. Madlib is a hip hop producer, for those who don't know, and he makes beats under a bunch of different pseudonyms and titles, and he even raps under this name Quasimodo, where he pitches his voice up high. He makes all the beats, but like he has all these different projects under all these different pseudonyms that like have a different vibe to it. So I told him like, bro, like you could just put it out under another name, to where like okay, like the people who like his main stuff, they won't like listen to it and be like disappointed that it's not these dreamy hip hop beats that they're used to. So like the point being is that like especially in like music making and making art, like people just don't give a fuck anymore. People just do what they want, and it ends up resonating. It ends up resonating with an audience, and it ends up really just getting out there in a real way. And I told him that. And even like one of my favorite rappers right now is this rapper called Cities of Eve, and he makes beats. So he's a rapper and producer, but he has like a beat making project called African American Sound Recordings, and he just releases these full, hip hop, ambient, hypnagogic type albums under that name. And then he raps and makes beats under the main name Cities of Eve. And I told him, I was like, bro, you could just do that. And I'm like, and I was telling him too, because I'm like, a lot of people listen to African American sound recordings, and they don't even realize that they're listening to Cities of Eve too. So I was like, bro, you could just put that out under a different name, and then go back to Archangel whenever you make those type of beats again. Like it really doesn't matter, Just do what you feel. Just do what you feel, man. Yeah, retardmaxxing, bro. Like literally, like it just resonated with me, and it applies to like so many different areas in life. And like, since we're talking about music, and since we're talking about my favorite rapper, Cities of Eve, like just looking at his discography, like he's someone who taught me like not to give a single fuck, because people could get bogged down in like, oh, but like this is unconventional, and like how would you market it, and like you need an audience, and blah blah blah. And it's like, man, none of that shit even matters, because like Cities of Eve, he got like these 2 albums. It's actually 3 albums, but like the he has these 3 albums where like he makes beats and he raps over them, but he freestyles over everything. And you could tell that he freestyles because he'll like say a handful of bars and then let the instrumental ride, and he'll say a few more bars, and like it's almost like you hear him thinking of what he's gonna say in that space. And it's crazy, but it's like that's such an unconventional way of doing things, because like especially like in the field of like hip hop, boom bap, more heady experimental type shit, people will really think about what they write and put a lot of attention into their writing, which I think is awesome. I do the same thing, but like he freestyled over these beats that are incredible, and then those albums that he freestyled over, 2 of them ended up being like some of his most like acclaimed work, and he freestyled over it. He didn't write anything, and that just goes to show that it's like he just did what he felt, and it resonated, and it ended up doing a lot for his career as a rapper, as an artist, as a producer. And it's like even then, one of the albums that he just freestyles over, like those beats like that, like he just, I'm making sure my mic is on. But there's like 8 songs, right? And then like the first 7, it's like 2 minute song, 8 minute song, 12 minute song, 1 minute song. But then the last song, the 8th song off that album, is literally like a 45-minute juggernaut. And obviously it kind of operates like a jazz song to where it's like it's a 45-minute song, but there's like several movements and tracks in it and stuff like that. But the last song is 45 minutes. And the total runtime of this album is like something like an hour and 20 minutes. It's something like ridiculous. Something that like most people or like reviewers, they would call it like, oh, the album's too indulgent. It's overindulgent, or it's like the runtime is too long. He should have cut it down. But like, dude, like the last song is a 45-minute song, and in that particular album is like his most acclaimed album in his whole discography. And that's an album that he freestyled, and it's an album that he ended with a 45-minute song. Like that one song could have been a whole album by itself, but he chose to just put it out the way he wanted to. And the point is just doing what you feel. Doing what you feel is right, and retard maxing. Because especially like at the point that I made before, I felt like I didn't say it correctly. But like the stuff with relationships, it's like you might meet someone who like you really like, and like y'all have all this chemistry together, but in your head you're thinking, oh, like, this isn't the right time, the timing isn't right, like I don't think I'm ready for that type of commitment, like can I be that consistent to someone, like, oh, I'm working on this, or like I'm going to school and that takes up a lot of my time, or like maybe you don't have your finances up, or whatever the case may be, and your head goes in all these different directions, when it's like, man, simple problems have simple solutions. Like, you're really into this person, right? So just go for it. Literally, just do it. And then it ends up working out in the long run. And it's like, if you listen to like your head going all into all these different directions, you could have missed out on like a really good opportunity, a really good connection that's fulfilling. So it's like, yeah, I felt like that I explained that better right now than I tried to before. But let me go through my things again. Nah, but yeah, man, I guess I really want to drive home like why we overcomplicate things, because simple problems really do have simple solutions, but it's like I said, like humans in an attempt to understand the world and understand themselves, they get attached to all these abstract concepts, and they start to think, like we start to think in a way that's just like it's just too much. And like I said, those things are all those tools are incredibly useful, but there's a time and a place. And I think that's the point that I want to drive home, is that there's discernment. And obviously there's discernment in this video too. Like if you're just doing what you feel, but you're doing like a harmful activity, like of course don't do what you feel. Don't take it too literal. But yeah, the point being is that just retard max. Just do what you feel. Like, don't get bogged down in all the semantics and all the big grandiose concepts. Like, it's good to know about how the world works, and it's good to understand that so you could maneuver through the world in a way that's more useful, just more smart. But it's like, don't get lost in it. Don't get lost in your own sauce, and that's a big thing. And it's funny because one of my other brothers, he says that a lot, mostly with artists. But like, yeah, don't get lost in your own sauce, man. Just do what you feel. Do what feels right. Retard max. And I don't even care. I'm gonna be saying that in this video mad times, but it's like it really does resonate. But I'm going through the rest of my points right now. This one I think is very important. So a story that's very useful for like just doing it, just retard maxing, doing what you feel, is when I was like, I want to say like 7 years old. I had to be like at least 6 or 7. My local pool that I went to, they have all these different pools. They have a kiddie pool. They have one that's like 3 feet, something like that. And they have this 13-feet pool with a big diving board, right? And it's something that, you pass by it, you see it all the time. All the adults go on it. Nah, but yeah, so I started swimming at about like 4 or 5 years old. Like I was like very early on, I was taught how to swim. So like by the time I was 7 years old, I knew what I was doing, and then I started to I joined the swim team, and everything started coming together in that way. But one day, like my swimming instructor, like they brought me and my 2 brothers, and they brought us to the diving board, and they were like, hey, like you guys want to finally give this a chance and like go like dive off the big diving board and stuff like that. And it's 13 feet. So it's like, I was only 7 years old. So I was only really used to like swimming in a pool to where it's like I could like I could feel my feet on the floor. So it's like, yeah, I'm swimming, but like I always have like that to lean on in a way. So I was used to swimming in those pools, but he asked us, and it was like kind of scary at that age. But then I was just like, fuck it, I'll do it. And then like literally, my swimming instructor, he told me, he was like, don't even think about how deep the pool is. Just swim towards the ladder. And so I got to do what I do. I went on the big one. I jumped off it, and I did a cannonball or whatever I ended up doing. And yeah, I just swam to the ladder. And I didn't even think about the how deep the pool was, not being able to feel the floor, any of that. I just swam to the ladder, and it was awesome. You feel accomplishment, and stuff like that really helps to build your self esteem as a kid. But the point being is that, like, if I would have got like too stuck in my head, I would have said hell no. I would have been thinking about, oh, like I'm only used to swimming in pools where I can feel the floor. Like I've never swam in a pool like that. Like what if I drown? What if this? What if that? Like if I would have gave it too much thought, I would have been too bogged down by it, and I wouldn't have made that decision. I wouldn't have done the thing that like has carried over in my life like continuously. So the point being is just do what you feel. Like literally, it's cliche, Nike slogan, but just do it, because like in that instance, I felt that sense of accomplishment as a kid. Like it was a big deal, like to the point that like I remember like once that school year hit, like I was telling my friends like, yeah, I did this. I jumped off the big diving board, and I swam in the really really deep pool, like the deepest pool. And you have friends who don't swim and stuff like that. Not everybody learns how to swim at that age. So yeah, like if I would have thought about it too much, I would not have done that thing. And like even then, like that's something that like has carried over in my life like continuously, to where it's like yeah, you may be scared, you may be nervous, but literally like just do it. And like that's like quite literally the definition of courage, of being courageous, which is like being scared of something, like having that feeling of anxiety and the pain in your stomach and your chest, but doing it anyways. And then I guess that transfers over into another point, which is that like I'm not saying everybody does this, but like some people, because they're like tapped in and they like understand politics, philosophy, psychology, all these like big abstract concepts, because they're into that, they may think that like they're holier than thou in some respects, and like it could transfer over into literally anything, like fitness, music taste, whatever, right? But it's the dumb people. It's the people who are quote unquote dumb that are the people who are happier, because it's like, you know, obviously critical thinking, introspection, self-reflection, that is so important in your development. It is so important. So like, for example, like if you suppress something, you could be like, okay, like this is something that I gotta work through, or like understanding your shadow self, to where it's like you integrate that part of yourself in your everyday life, and thus you're a more complete person. Like a lot of these concepts, like I don't want to like seem like I'm like dissing philosophy, Carl Jung, Freud, like all these people, when it's like a lot of these things are important. A lot of these things are incredibly useful for like the growth and development of people in general. It's the people who like aren't into all that type of stuff who are happier. And like I said, there's a time and a place. So like understanding these grand concepts, they help, especially if you're like living in delusion, not accepting the truth or reality, or just like whatever the case may be. Like those concepts are important. They're crucial to people, in my opinion. However, it's the quote unquote dumb people who are happier. They're happier, because especially like it's the people who like get bogged down in this information, who don't like transcend that, or don't say, hey, like this may be the way the world works, but I'm gonna be better than that. It's the people who get bogged down by it, who like get caught in that trap. And I'm not acting like I'm better than them. I've been caught in that trap, and I've definitely like felt to those type of ways like in the past, but I'm better off for it. But the point being is that it's the quote unquote dumb people that are happier, because it's like those are the people who literally say, oh, I think this girl's pretty, so I'm gonna go say hi to her. I'm gonna go talk to her, right? And then it's the guys who like are like critical thinkers, or like overthinkers, or just like people who like are smarter, that'll be like, oh no, she's gonna think I'm a creep. She's gonna think I'm weird. Like, yo, should I do this? Should I not do this? And it's like, it could apply to anything. Like, literally, it's the girl who like thinks a guy that's cute and doesn't care. She'll just go up to the guy and be like, yeah, I really like your shirt, or yo, I like that band, and then like a connection starts from that, or even just a friendship starts from that. And like, it's the quote unquote dumb people who will just say fuck it, who will just say, hey, I think this person is cool, so I'm gonna go talk to them. And then it's smarter people who get stuck in their head and don't end up doing it. And it's like, that's why it's like discernment is key. Discernment is everything. Knowing when to do something and when not to do something. Like, that's why it's like retard maxing. Just do what you feel. Because like I said, it really paid off with YouTube, because now I got all these fresh ideas in my head, and now I have all these things where, oh, I could go do this, or I could go do that, or I could go not even be limited to YouTube, but like venture off into different platforms and do all these different things, when it's like that time off saying that YouTube isn't fun for me, so I'm not going to do this for a little bit, ended up paying off in the long run. And plus I got an album that I'm really proud of that's going to be coming out hopefully soon. Hopefully, be on the lookout for that. But I think this should be my last point, but it's like, since music is my background, since all of my video essays are about music, popular music, I don't know if you guys hear that. Someone's fucking going crazy with their car. All right, fuck that shit, fuck that shit. All right, retard maxing literally push popular music forward. Artists saying, I'm going to do what I feel. I'm not going to follow what record executives think I should do, or like what's mainstream, or like what'll give me a hit. It's like retard maxing and doing what they felt, doing what they resonated with, doing what was true. It ended up working out in the long run for them. And like one example I want to pull from is like disco, or like dance music. So like, as we all know, like disco was like, it was kind of like a fad in the 70s. The music was still fire, and you had like Saturday Night Fever, you know, ABBA, fucking the Bee Gees, all that. It was a phenomenon. But like towards like 1978, 79, for those who don't know, like there started being pushback from like people who were into like rock and like Led Zeppelin and the Beatles and like MC5, like all these different bands. And it's funny because it's like, since I'm into metal and hardcore, like I fell into the trap of like, oh no, like I listen to real music. But the point being is that like there was a lot of pushback from disco, and that ended up culminating into what would become like the big disco inferno, to where it's like people took a bunch of disco records, they lit them on fire at a baseball stadium, a football stadium, something like that. They ended up lighting them on fire, and it caused like a whole riot basically. And then disco was like officially dead after that point, right? But basically after disco had died, there was a movement called like post disco, or like some people call it boogie, which is where it's like kind of like a continuation of disco. And that's actually like the categorization of like Off the Wall by Michael Jackson. That's considered like a quintessential post disco record, right? But the point being is that like there were still people who were into disco after it died, but it just wasn't mainstream. It just wasn't doing anything like on like a wide scale, right? And then these DJs in Detroit, I believe, they just continued playing dance music, right? All throughout like the early to mid 80s, right? And then once hip hop started becoming a thing, so like these DJs, they would DJ on radios and they would DJ at parties, right? And like the parties were jumping, the parties were live. Like it's dance music. Like dance music just translates, it's timeless. But these DJs were still very much dance music enthusiasts, even when dance music or disco wasn't even like a force in the mainstream. And eventually, with the rise of hip hop, these dance DJs started getting their hands on like drum machines and like the Rolling 808 and all these different things, and that's how like modern dance music came to fruition and like really became a thing. And it became a thing because these DJs, they didn't care, they just didn't give a fuck. They said, we're gonna do what we feel. They retard maxed. They literally just said no, like even though dance music is not mainstream by any means, like we're just gonna continue doing this. And that's how house was created. And obviously like that ended up becoming like a juggernaut, like a force. And it's like still felt today, and that led to like EDM, you know, techno, house, breakbeat, jungle, just like all these different subgenres, and even like IDM. And it's funny because like IDM is my favorite iteration of the genre, but it's called like intelligent dance music. So like I hate that label, but I love the music. But yeah, like it was just these dance DJs that did not care. They just did what they felt, and they said even though it is not mainstream, we still rock with the genre, and they kept the genre alive, and they ended up creating modern dance music. And then like especially in music, like I could pull so many examples of like people retard maxing, like even like Marvin Gaye, for example. Like Marvin Gaye, he was signed to Motown Records, right? And he had a string of hits. He was killing it, whatever the case may be. But then, like by the time the '70s rolled around, he had this album called "What's Going On," and as we all know, "What's Going On" ended up being this timeless record. Like it's considered one of the best albums of all time. But at the time, once he presented it to Barry Gordy, who ran Motown Records, Barry Gordy was like, "Nah, man, like we're like a family label. Like we make these love songs, we make these wholesome records, and like you're on this album talking about war, talking about mortality, talking about religion and God, really talking about these like big picture themes." And Barry Gordy wanted no part of it because he was like Motown, like we sell records, and we sell records about love, about heartbreak, about just like people go to music to escape all that was his point. But like you want to like bring it to the forefront and talk about all these social issues and stuff like that, like it just didn't resonate. He just did not get it. But Marvin Gaye did not care. He didn't care what was mainstream. He didn't care what audiences wanted to hear. He wrote an album that he was incredibly proud of, and he fought for that record. And as we all know, what's going on ended up coming out, and it's one of the best records ever made. And it was like such a reflection of the early '70s. It was such a reflection of the Vietnam War and the hippie movement and counterculture, and it brought all these themes like war, mortality, death, religion. It brought all these like big picture themes to light, and it ended up becoming one of the best albums of all time, one of the most acclaimed albums ever. And it's like even the casual music listener knows about Marvin Gaye. They know the song was going on, and Marvin Gaye ended up creating a timeless album because he did not care about what mainstream audiences wanted. He didn't care about what his record executive wanted. He didn't care what Motown wanted. He just said, "Yeah, we have enough of those romantic songs. Let's talk about something real," and it ended up resonating. Another example of that in music is the group Injury Reserve. Now, Injury Reserve was they're a group who's been killing it since like the mid 2010s, right? And they were a group that like me and like my group of friends were really up on. Like I was one really pushing them because they were always incredibly talented, right? And but they were also simultaneously incredibly slept on too. And like they were making all these fantastic mixtapes, and they were just killing it. But it was only like they were like a artist that like if you know you know. They were a group that like if you knew about them you loved them, but a lot of people just weren't really into them like that, or like didn't even know about them, right? So they come out, they got signed to a major label, and they dropped their self-titled debut album, which I think was a great record. However, apparently behind the scenes, like their approach to that, they kind of played it safe. Like they kind of want to take the outcast approach to where it's like, okay, like we're experimental and zany and out there, but simultaneously, like we have like mass appeal and we have these hits and we have these catchy songs. They wanted to do the balancing act and kind of do like the best of both worlds, kind of like what Kendrick does nowadays. But yeah, they made the album was like it was cool, but like they made that album, and like after that, they asked to get released from their record label, released from their record contract. And I actually did not know this until quite recently. But once they got released from their record label, they ended up writing an album that pushed the genre forward. And it was an album that like not only did it push the genre forward, but it finally gave them that recognition. And the recognition wasn't just in like hip hop circles, but it was in like the totality of like music journalism and like music fandom and like all the music nerds. Like it was like people who don't even listen to hip hop, they know about their record by the time I get to Phoenix, which came out in 2021. Like it's one of those albums that is like universal, and like they ended up finally getting that acclaim and finally getting that recognition by just like ripping up the rule book and saying like, you know what, we're not gonna like try to play it safe. We're not gonna aim for like mainstream recognition, or we're not gonna aim for like that type of music. And they ended up making music that was like, it was dark, it was nocturnal, it was like industrial and like incredibly glitchy, especially in the field of hip hop. It was just like an album that like honestly has never been done in the field of hip hop, like to the point that like some audiences consider that post rap, and like post rap is like a bloated label, but it's like the album is so out there, and it did so much to like push the genre forward and push their careers forward, that some people think it's a step like beyond hip hop to where it's like something completely different. The point is retard maxing, bro. If they would have played it safe, if they would have just not did what they felt in their heart, they probably would have been in the same spot to where they were like pretty good, recognized, but like also like incredibly slept on. But it's like they did what they felt in their heart. They said, "Fuck trying to appeal to whoever, retard max," and they ended up making like a big impact on the genre of hip hop and like music in general. But yeah, I mean, I think those are all the points that I have to say. But I definitely want to do reiterate: don't take it too seriously. Don't overcomplicate things. Don't overthink. Just retard max. Just do what you feel in your heart. Because honestly, following your intuition will get you further in the long run. Following your intuition is like crucial. It is incredibly beneficial, and it's like you have to use discernment. Like of course there's a time and place. There's a time to self-reflect. There's a time to be introspective and journal and really critically think and really like just get in tune with yourself and like understand the world around you. Like there is a place for that. There is a place for philosophy and all these big picture concepts. But simultaneously it's like don't get bogged down in it. Don't get bogged down by it, and don't get lost in your own sauce. Like just do what you feel and retard max. That is it. Now it's crazy because I retard max before, because I recorded this video one time and the mic wasn't on, and then I just couldn't get it right after. So maybe I took it too far. But yeah, man, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all that type of stuff. And yeah, I'm gonna be making these videos a lot more often, and I'm gonna be making video essays a lot more now. So yeah, just you know, tap in, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.